Update. My 13-year-old brother went silent after Dad called him a mistake. It's been 2 days and he still won't speak. Original post. My little brother is the smiliest boy ever. He's extremely cheeky and talks a lot. He also gets into a lot of trouble at school. Not too bad, it's usually just, your son keeps interrupting class. Your son doesn't listen to instructions. Your son is very loud on the bus. Your son may be a bit distracting at times. Like I said, not too bad. My dad says otherwise. My dad and brother don't have the best relationship. In fact, they seem to argue every day. I think it's because my brother isn't the ideal son my dad wanted. Bro is an art kid, dad is a typical sports guy. I know it isn't right to take sides, but my dad is being a bit much with my brother. He's a good kid, just with a lot of energy. He gets good grades too, so there isn't really much my dad can use against him. 2 days ago, my brother got into trouble at school again. Apparently, he was talking while the teacher was talking, and when asked to leave the classroom, he refused. I definitely think there is something else that isn't being revealed because my brother doesn't do that. He'd crack a joke or two, but he wouldn't just swear at the teacher for no reason. My brother hates it when people swear? My dad didn't care if the situation seemed odd. Nope, not at all. He picked him up from school and just shouted at him. According to my mom, my dad called him a mistake, a headache, and a sorry excuse for a son. He also made comments about whether he was straight and asked him why he looked like a girl. Then, to top it all off, he threw away my brother's favorite sketchbook. I went over immediately and tried to talk to him, but on the first day, my dad refused to let me in. My brother left me on red when I texted him and didn't answer any of my calls. I went back again yesterday, and the whole time my brother stayed in his room and refused to talk to me. He didn't go to school or anything either, just stayed in his room all day. I tried talking to him earlier today again, but he just ignored me. I asked my parents why he isn't going to school. He wasn't suspended or anything, and my mom just shrugged and said that Dad would deal with it. She also said that he wasn't talking to anyone, so I shouldn't worry too much. Now my mom's getting on my nerves too. This is literally my last resort. I desperately need advice on how I can get my brother to talk to me. I need him to see that I'm there for him and that I love him and that he isn't a mistake, but I just don't know how. Now for the update. My brother is fine. He looked absolutely horrible and was a complete mess, but he was all right. I went over last night and my mom let me in. I explained to her that my brother, you can call him Nikki, could stay with me for a while. She was easily convinced. My dad just told me to make sure Nikki doesn't ruin my life, to which I responded to with a big F you. He was kind of stunned, but whatever. I absolutely hate him right now. I took everyone's advice and basically told Nikki that I was here for him. I told him that I loved him and that Dad was a major asshole. I told him that I'd buy him more art supplies if he'd like, and I told him that he could stay with me for a while. It took some time, but my brother unlocked the door and basically just sobbed in my arms. It was probably the most heartbreaking moment of my life. My little brother just kept crying, and all my parents did was roll their eyes. As of right now, he's fast asleep at my place, and we're going to go shopping for stuff later. He'll also go back to school after the weekend. And some people asked if he was in the closet or had ADHD. And to that, all I have to say is that if he was a part of the LGBT community, or if he did have ADHD, I would still love him all the same. I told him that as well, less directly obviously, and he just smiled. He was pretty exhausted last night. As his older sister, who raised him ever since he was a little baby, these past few days were really tough, but they were much harder on my brother. He is definitely going to be staying with me for a while, and although I can't guarantee anything, I have school and work, I'll try my absolute hardest to protect him from my parents. Thank you to everyone who gave advice, support, and thank you so much for worrying about Nikki. I really appreciated it. Story. Am I the a-hole for telling my father I no longer care to make him proud? Plus update. Original post. Sorry if this is all wonky and long as I don't normally post, and I am typing on my cell. So if you don't like long posts, just keep scrolling. This ain't for you. You were warned. I, F30, am the only biological child of my father, M66. He is married to his wife, F50, who happens to also be the woman he cheated on my mother with when they were together forever ago. I live in the same state as my mom, F55, and her husband and our blended family. I didn't really often speak to my father after he divorced my mom and left the state to marry his now wife. Honestly, his wife is nice to me, and I am cordial with her. But my dad is a former Marine and self-proclaimed logic cur. That's his words, not mine. He says he is a pragmatist and a pessimist because if he's 6, hey, it's not a disappointment, but a happy surprise. I can't go into all of my father's manipulation of me as a kid without this being a Tolkien book set of words. So suffice it to say, I am not like him at all. I am creative and fun-loving, enjoy things like theater and painting and whatever. He has told me more than once that my career choice of teaching art is a waste of the skills he taught me. Don't ask me what those skills are. My mom raised me my whole life as a single parent, and when they married for all of a year, he was away for work, and after the divorce, Mom was alone for years before she met my dad, her husband. I can count on my hands the amount of one-on-one time I've had with my father growing up, and one hand is all the times we either ended up at the hospital. Once his sugar ran low, and he tunnel-visioned while driving and rammed our car into a building. Or the police station. He almost got arrested for getting aggressive with some stranger we accidentally bumped into on a walk in his city, and he was let off because the cop was a fellow Marine. Recently, in the past 5 years, he has said he wants to be in my life. He called me a lot, but I worked 50-hour weeks sometimes, and I was just busy. My own mother had barely heard from me, but he took offense. He left me 6 vulgar voicemails like, "I'm your fucking father and you don't ignore me." He then left me text messages throughout the week of the same sentiment. He then found my workplace office number and called there, which resulted in me having a very awkward conversation with HR and my then supervisor. When I finally spoke to him, I said he can't blow up my phone or call my job like that, and that I was busy between work, therapy, physical therapy. I was in an accident which he didn't even want to discuss, and caring for my sick dog. He basically said the same about him being my father, and I better not dare ignore him again. Fast forward to 3 months ago, in April, when I came out as bisexual, and he called me to tell me what a disappointment I am and how disgusting it is that I chose to be a fetish for his fellow Marines by being a porn. That was when I told him I really didn't want to speak to him about my queerness and kept my distance. We are friends on Facebook, and he posted some really homophobic memes and the like, and how queer people should be reprogrammed, so I deleted him from Facebook. His wife called me crying that this fighting is stressing her out, and she loves me like her own, and begged me to make up with him, so we had a virtual family game night with her, her son, my father, and myself. We played a version of Pictionary, and he drew a picture of a stick figure in a straight jacket drooling, and I didn't guess it. The phrase was Happy Pride. I recently decided to get my next degree, and this came up in a FaceTime conversation with him and his wife, and they asked what in, and I told them either child psychology or primary education, as I want to advance in my career. My father sighed heavily and said, "Well, I guess those who can't do teach." It was then that I cried in front of him for the first time since I was a kid. I was proud of myself, so proud, that I managed to put my chaotic life together enough to be on track to get back to school. I got my PTSD in line, made a hard choice in leaving my job for a better paying one, started paying off my debts from my first degree, and finally landed in a place to go back to school. And he couldn't just say, "That's nice, kid," or something nonchalant. I said I was tired and needed to go and hung up the call. His wife texted me an apology and said they are proud of my tenacity and hard work and can't wait to see what I will do with my degree. Last week, my father called and told me he is sick, like really sick. His kidney again. A few years back, he rekindled our relationship because of his kidney failure. He could have not made it, but fortunately his treatments and dialysis helped him until a kidney came. I did get tested and was a match, but I was at risk and couldn't do surgery. Now he's going downhill again. He asked me if I planned to get married at all, and I said if it happens, it happens, but I am seeing someone right now, and we are currently okay with just dating. He asked if it's a woman, and I said no. He said he wants to be at my wedding and give me away, so I should ask my BF to marry me. I was confused because firstly, he didn't ask if I wanted to marry the man. I would in a heartbeat. My BF is amazing. And secondly, we may never marry. It's just not on the menu for at least a year or so. My father told me that while he was largely absent from my childhood, I'm still his little girl, and he loves me with all his heart. I'm his legacy and dream, and he needs to know the lineage can go on. I then broke to my father that I don't want kids right now and might never want kids. He told me then that I would have kids to make me proud for once. He's my father. I love him. But I just snapped. I asked him how I haven't made him proud before. He listed things here and there, like when I wrecked a car at 25. He wasn't even there, and I told him about this. Or when I chose teaching over being in the military or police force, or at least a lawyer. He then went on about a 10-minute rant about my phase of liking women before I got with my BF. I said that I'm still bi. I love my career, and I love the person I've become, and I frankly no longer concern myself with if I make him proud. I am proud of me. Mom and Dad and my siblings are too. And that's enough for me. I strive to make myself proud. And if that's not enough for him, so be it. He asked if I'm really okay with him dying thinking I am a disappointment, and I said, well, bottom line without fluff? Yeah, it is, because I am happy. His wife called me yesterday, and it was a 2-hour talk. She started off hysterical, asking me why I would break his heart and spirit while he is so sick and facing life-threatening issue again. She called me cruel and said she was incredibly disappointed in me and said I think myself, my mother's daughter, more than my father's daughter. I was crushed, but said something along the lines of, he doesn't accept me, and if he weren't my father, that'd be enough for me to never speak to him again. I don't want him to be sick, but he is. He doesn't want me to be queer, but I am. The difference is sicknesses can be treated or even cured. My queerness, not so much. She started sobbing and hung up. Look, I am aware that my father is a homophobic jerk, and if you're a homophobic jerk, don't bother. I am still going to be me. But it hurt me so much that there is just nothing he finds good about me. Not a single thing. It hurts. It shouldn't, but it hurts. The nail for me was today, his birthday. I called to say happy birthday, and he told me to save it, and he knows I'm celebrating my mom. Her birthday is the day after his, and not him. And this is a pity call, because I don't love him. He said he wishes he had more children, so one of them wouldn't be so selfish and would just grant every father's wish to see his daughter married and to give her away before he dies. I've spoken to my dad, stepfather, about what he thinks about me not being married and the like. Neither is his bio daughter, my sister. And he just laughed and said, baby, if you're happy with your life and I die tomorrow, I die happy. Marrying your mother was the best choice I ever made, and I'm happy, but marriage ain't for everyone. Do you? I clung to that all day, but I can't unhear my father crying. He texted me that if I hate him to just say it, so he can face his death, knowing the truth, and that saying I don't care about him being proud of me was a low blow to a father and a betrayal. I don't want him to face his mortality, all this shitty medical treatment he needs to go through, the financial burden, the mental burden, the everything about this situation that sucks for him, and think I hate him. I do not hate my father. I've been through my therapy and let go of all that anger. Now all that left is sadness and guilt. I don't regret holding my ground, but he seems really hurt by what I said. I am too emotional to know for sure. Am I the a-hole? I am sitting and waiting for my friends to meet me for karaoke night to ask them, but I figured I ask here too. Now for the updates. Update 1. Sorry if this doesn't make sense. I have been crying and drinking, and it is what it is. I felt so bad that I called my father and just cut him off before he started small talking. I told him that my stepfather, my dad, is my dad. He was there when I learned how to ride a bike. He was there when Trevor from 6th grade broke my little emo heart. He was the guy who came and got me when I got too drunk at a concert and needed a sober ride even though I was an hour out. That's my dad. If I ever got married and did the traditional give away the bride, no shade to folk who want that, I don't. It would be my dad, the same dad that hugged me as I cried for hours when my grandmother died. Same guy who got tampons at the drugstore when I had a hormonal teenage meltdown. That guy. My father just said, "I understand," and nothing more. When I said my whole piece, he just said, "Are you done?" And I said I was. He hung up without a word. His wife texted me not long after telling me that if he dies, it's my fault because I broke his spirit and the picture of why he would fight for his life. She told me that after our call, he started to drink heavily, and that this is also my fault. I've been up at my mom and stepfather's since to try to enjoy the weekend with family, but it bothers me. I need to be clear. I don't want my father to die. I do have good memories with him, and no one deserves what he is going through. But I hate this blame game, and I hate them for doing it. I may or may not have even spoiled my mother for her birthday and have been very obnoxious over social media about it, highlighting all she has done for me. I do not want my father to suffer, and I do not want him to have regrets, but he's just not my dad. He's not a parent, and I don't think we will ever get there. That ship has sailed. I just now sent a text, and you can be the judge if I am a horrible daughter or not. But at this point, I don't think I am. Dad, words will never suffice. I love you fiercely. I always will. But as you know, you are my father, but not my dad. Fake name. Theo is my dad. I do not ascribe to the tradition to give the bride away, but if I did, Theo would give me away. I'm sorry. I know that might hurt, but I value him and all he has done. He didn't need to adopt me as his own, but he did, and my life is great. I love my family, my life, and I am happy when I think about the future. Isn't that what you want? For me to be happy? I ask because it's what I want for you. I don't want to go no contact. I don't want us to ever stop talking for so many reasons. I mean, sometimes you are right. I am like you. I'm left-handed, love jazz, am good at programming, and generally am the level-headed friend. But I am also like Mom, kind-hearted, tenacious, outspoken. You don't own me just due to genetics. If you want to be in my life, I welcome that and you. But it has to be respectful on both ends. I will not tolerate anything else. If this works for you, awesome. But if not, understand that this means that we will never have a true relationship. I love you so much. I truly hope for you that you will be well and never in pain or discomfort. But those are my terms. And I signed it. I saw he saw my text, but I haven't heard back. I feel like even if he responded negatively, I would want a response. This waiting is the worst. So here I am on Reddit, trying to spend time. Lol, what a life. My father finally responded, but not in a way I expected. I work odd hours, so I saw the second his 2 a.m. response came in. I adjusted some info for privacy. OP, I can't express my disappointment. When I left your mother, I had hoped you would be more discerning, but you are as disrespectful and foolish as your mother. Know this, while I love you, my beautiful daughter, you will be at fault when I finally pass on. If you can live with that, then you are your mother's daughter. I am willing to forgive if you offer an earnest and true apology, but I will not waste what little time I have left vying for the affection of someone who wishes death on me. You have until September to decide on what sort of person you are. I look forward to your decision. Your loving father, his name. I had called a bestie of mine that moment. We live in different countries/time zones, and sent screenshots, and after a FaceTime talk, I decided to block my father, his wife, and other folks supportive of him. I didn't bother explaining. I only lasted until 8 a.m. when I showed up to speak to my dad, stepfather, and cried my eyes out into his chest. He didn't know what was happening until I calmed down enough to explain. He was quiet and then said that he never wishes to speak ill of my father, but he doesn't want me to think this is fair and good treatment. He said he won't disrespect my father, but he's not a loving or caring dad to me, and he hopes I don't ever put stock in his words. Dad hugged me, and when Mom got up, we had breakfast together. I hate cutting my father off so quickly and completely, but I just can't deal with him anymore. Maybe later I can reach out someday, but not today. Sorry if that's not what folks wanted, but that's what happened. 3. I am sober this time, just upset, so my father's stepson reached out to me via Insta. When I get messages on social media, a little window hits the top of my screen with a preview of the first few words, and all I saw was something about my father being in the hospital, so I read it. My father took a fall. I can even remember if I mentioned it, but he is an amputee. He didn't have his prosthetic on, was going to the basement for some reason and fell and broke his leg. My stepbrother says that father is fine, but is telling everyone who is reaching out to him, OP says she doesn't want to be my daughter and I've been so depressed, so he threw himself down the stairs. My stepbrother was clear. He doesn't think he threw himself down the stairs, Ab just fell. Because stepbrother was home when it happened, to look after his mom who has been sick over this whole situation, and she and my father got into a loud fight where she said that my father's choices don't only affect him, and she's sick of his shit, and he should apologize to me. He told me to brace myself because my father is spreading word of how I have abandoned him, said I hate him, and that my stepdad and mother have poisoned me against him for years, and this was their endgame. He then said thinga about my stepdad that I can even start to type here because it makes me so angry. But to be clear, if not brief, my father is saying that stepdad is abusive towards me and my mom, and that's why I'm NC with my father. I've unblocked him on Facebook to find that he is posting public posts about it as well, with the same accusations and sharing articles on how to save a victim of abuse, etc. I now have to talk to my actual parents about this, and I know my mom will be upset. This is all such a mess, and I can't even process this. But my father is right about one thing now. I do hate him. Update 4. I need to edit here that this might be really upsetting. I am trying to add trigger warnings. I got a call a few weeks ago from my stepbrother, Mark, M20. We haven't been overly close, but long story short, my father accused him of snitching and punched him in the face. I asked if his mother was there, and he said she was yelling at him too. I ran to my dad, stepfather, and told him and dad got my stepbrother a ticket. Stepbrother flew in the very next morning. He started to stay with us for a couple days, and mom and dad started to consult a lawyer about it. I don't know all of what is going on with the lawyer, but I was and am more focused on my stepbrother. He was jumpy and scared, and he shrinks around my dad and other men in general, and stays close to mom, my sister, myself. One night, as I was drinking wine in the courtyard, he came out to talk with me, and he shared that my father beat him over nearly everything. If he didn't take out the trash, my father would slap him. He got a bad grade. He would do worse. He cried as he told me about this. I told him that I am glad he told me, but he should tell my mom as well, and maybe she and dad can help. He did the next morning. I went back home for a few days not long after, as I lived closer to my work and I had to be physically in. When I got into work, everything was fine, but then that week, I spotted my stepmother, Mark's mother. When she saw me, she yanked me by my collar and pulled me outside. I found out later that my coworker friend saw this and called the police. But my stepmother, Pepper, started to slap me around. She was yelling at me that I broke her family and stole her son. She demanded to know where Mark was and called me a worthless little slut. When she started hitting me, my friend and boss came put and yanked her off me, but she punched my friend and pushed my boss into a wall and turned around to kick me as I was now on the ground crying. My boss grabbed her again and he threw her down. She started to scream and cry that I've taken her only reasons to live, and she hopes I burn in hell, which she repeated over and over, but stayed down. The cops came, and the building has cameras, so she was charged, and I was taken to the hospital. I had some bruises, and I bruised a rib when I went down. My dad was next-level rageful. I've never seen him so angry in my whole life. He looked me over and listened to what the nurse told him, and he looked at me again and told me to rest. I asked what will happen, and he just gently pushed me back onto their pillows and told me he would be back. What I later learned is that after my father drove Mark away, he blamed Pepper for him vanishing out from under them. Then he started to hit her. According to Pepper, he's hit her before, but stopped for about 15 years ago, but did hit Mark, but she was afraid of stopping him. After days of renewed abuse and SA from my father, she left to find Mark, and since she paid the phone bill, found him on a location app and knew due to it being my state that I would know where he was. She claims to have been desperate, and it was the mental and emotional distress that caused her to attack me. While she was gone, she apparently didn't tell my father where she was going or why, and he came home to a semi-EMTP house and decided to down enough alcohol to numb a moose. He was found blackout drunk, wandering his street, and hospitalized for alcohol poisoning. He is still in hospital now, as since he has a transplanted kidney, he needs to be given intensive care, as he says he is now suicidal because he was abandoned by all of his family. My dad got Mark into therapy, and Mark is now staying with Dad's sister because he's so jumpy and anxious, and she lives in a smaller town which is quieter, and with remote therapy, he can spend time healing and getting help. Mom has gone full scorched earth about my father. She has put together a bunch of documents, my text history, etc. She's suing him. Not sure all about the what, but I think it's emotional distress and defamation. I went back home to my parents because the powers that be at my job have let me go, so now I am without income. My father did try messaging me on social media, some pretty hurtful stuff, but when Mom's lawyer started to go after him, it stopped. I don't know what will happen, Pepper, and I don't care as long as she stays away from me. When she was arrested, she threatened me and said she knew where I lived, and since I destroyed her, she will destroy me. So Dad is sure that's the nail on the coffin, and she will be held and then given jail time. He assures me that is the case, but I can't relax. I can only check the locks and try to distract myself, but I can't sleep. Mom got really worried, and I won't say she forced me into a psychiatrist office, but it wasn't my first choice. I can't bother to talk about that right now. I focus myself on the garden, cooking dinners, and reading on the couch. I started to paint crafts for Halloween and have been making pumpkin everything. I cry most of the time. I loved my job and my life and independence, but now I'm just a skittish, weepy, unemployed mess. I don't like this person, who flinched at the doorbell, who can't be calmed down when startled at a door closing, this pathetic woman who can't function anymore. My hatred of my father knows no bounds now. Mom said she is taking him to task legally, and I said he deserves worse. I am disgusted that I share any DNA with that bastard. I hate every since trait I have that might be his. Anything that isn't my mother looking back at me, I despise about myself. It's just a waiting game now. Wait for court for Pepper. Wait to see if Mark is okay. Wait to see what will happen to my father. Wait to see if I can find a job. Wait until I can no longer afford my rent and get evicted. Just wait. I hate it.